Hey guys, and welcome back to Little Black Book. You know what time it is. Talking to you guys today about trauma bonding. From our last video that we spoke about, you guys requested this particular topic. What is trauma bonding and how does it affect your relationships going forward? Guys, if you're new to the channel, do me a favor. You like, share, subscribe, click on the bell button for a notification of the uploads and for more great content like this. And for those of you who are returnees, well, you know the model, baby. You got the minerals. You got the minerals. All right, cool. Listen, don't forget as well, grab your merchandise, you know what I'm saying? Power, courage, strength, bravery. You understand? Power, strength, courage, bravery. That's what minerals is. You understand? That is what minerals is. All right, cool. Let's get into the video, trauma bonding and what it's really about. So the term trauma bonding, I thought trauma bonding was all about how in relationships people bond with their own traumas, right? And that, let's say like, I'm a bit, I've experienced my childhood in a certain way. You've experienced your childhood in a certain way. And I thought when we bond together, that was trauma bonding. That's not it. Trauma bonding really is deeper than that. Okay, trauma bonding, I've written a definition down here, is a simple form of a relationship developed that a person bonds to an abuser. I think it's a very key thing. There is a development of a bond, a relationship with an abuser, right? Some say an abuser, some say an enabler. More often than that, it's encapsulated in the word narcissist, okay? And so that person forms that bond with an abuser and is loyal to the destructive, cyclical nature of their bond, okay? I'm going to explain that in a second. The enabler uses emotional cycles to create roller coaster effects with rewards at odd times. For instance, saying you're special, you're amazing, I love you, whilst at the same time, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, and other ways, potentially abusing you to form the destructive emotional cycle. So, in your relationship, you'll find that person will big you up at points like you're amazing, you're great, you're the best I've ever seen, you know what I'm saying, etc., etc. But in majority of the time, they are, breaking you down verbally. You can't do nothing right. You never do this right. You know what I'm saying? You're no good. Who will love you? Da 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 da. There's so many rhetorics of negative verbal abuse. And oftentimes it stems into physical abuse as well, okay? And the spiritual aspect is when you're dealing with cults, okay? And so these things where it becomes a destructive emotional cycle, what you see is that, like I said, a majority of the time behind closed, and these people they're smart, they know how to do it. Oftentimes you'll see it being destructive, the consistent verbal tirades that will come your way, and then you'll get a little bit of a compliment in there. There'll be a ray of glimmer of hope where there's a little compliment in there, and then a person holds on to that glimmer of hope, okay? And we're going to go a little bit deeper and explain more of this as well. The person locked into the relationship is often a person who is codependent and find themselves trying to understand the change of behavior in a relationship. So the term codependent, I want to break it down for you as well. The term codependent, I've got it here as a thing. So codependent often is to do with sacrificially trying to please someone and living off the need to be needed. Let me say that again. Codependency is all about sacrificially giving oneself over in time and in energy, in love, in care, etc., etc. Also that you can be needed by that person, and your willingness is to supply your time, energy, your body, your mind, your soul to that person's every waking need. To many of us, that person will be a people pleaser. There will be a yes man or woman. And many of us will say, you're too clingy, you're too much, I don't want you. But to the narcissist, that person, or I should say the narcissist, or even a person who is, let's just say a man who wants to abuse a girl, a man who just wants to sleep with a girl and not actually want a relationship, a man that wants to just cheat on a girl and not want a relationship, these traits can happen too. Okay, and what they're doing is they will utilize your people pleasing side of you, okay, and ask of their needs, which you will supply every single time. even at the detriment of your sleep and everything. And do you know what's scary? I have seen this up and close. I remember a situation, I don't want to go too deep because I don't want to end out anybody. There was a situation, a girl and a guy, and I remember the girl got up at 4 a.m. to drive this person to another city. And the city was far, it was like 100 miles, you know, and she would do this even with the tirade and the cussing and the insults that she was receive that same day or even the night before. And she was always on edge because she never knew what she was going to get with him. 1 minute he's going to be amazing, yeah, you know, all over her. Next minute he's going to be cussing her about, you can't drive, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't. And I was, at that time I was young, I just knew that this wasn't right. Right, I knew this was abusive, but I didn't know what to call it then. Now I'm looking back at it. Yeah, some years back. This is when I was 18, so what? Almost 10 years, guys. I'm looking back at a decade, you know, behavior, and I'm going, oh my days, that person was codependent. They were trying to supply that person's need at every given corner. And listen, they were doing the most. They would get up at any time the person wanted. They would do whatever that person wanted, even at the cost and the detriment of their job. Oh my God, mercy. An 18-year-old girl, you know, at the mercy of a man who's narcissistic. That's mad. Do you see what I'm saying? Let's break it down. I have to remain professional. I'm so sorry, guys. And so with trauma bonding, the initial, as I was saying, the person locked into a relationship is often a person who's codependent and finds themselves trying to understand the change of behavior in a relationship, whether it's emotional, physical, or mental barriers that begin to erode over time. This person who's codependent will try to figure out why it's eroding rather than saying, let me get out. The initial stages of a relationship can be love bombing, you know, care, appreciation, you know, but then over time, it will gradually fade in the emotional, physical, and spiritual selves. And the key thing to understand about this is that the participant is aware of the abuse. Whew. This is why trauma bonding is so dangerous. The person actually becomes aware of the abuse and they understand they're not being treated right, but they are locked in because of their codependency. So we have to break down codependency to truly understand trauma bonding. And so codependency in a person makes a person feel that they have agency. And agency in its definition just means is the misbegotten perception. Just deep that. Misbegotten perception. Okay? That our actions can influence and control the behaviors of other. Okay, agency is about control and the exercise of control in a relationship. So agency in its form, okay, is about you thinking that your behavior will change their behavior. Let me give you an example. Will Smith just recently did a video about Janet Hubert Herbert, and he was talking to the therapist, and he was describing his childhood, and he said that obviously his father was abusive to his mother, and he said, what I would do is I would become funny to stop my dad or pacify my dad so that he wouldn't abuse my mom. That was the way I was trying to change things. And what happens is this: when you get older, people are locked into constructs of their mind because of what they've experienced in the past, and they're trying to execute a new program on top of what they've experienced in the past into the new, because sometimes we're still living in the past. You're still trying to change the past of what you did then, because now you're bigger, you're stronger. Yeah, you can change. You feel like you can change the past, but you can't. And so what happens is you find yourself in scenarios that are similar to what you experienced in the past, trying to act different. But the truth of the matter is, because of what you've experienced, and you've now become codependent, you're now used to a certain level of behavior from the other person, and used to now trying to control that other person. And when I say control, you're not actually achieving it. All you're doing is that there's some points where you maybe potentially pacify that person's behavior, but it doesn't stop their behavior. You know, and so many a times people find themselves in a codependent position, trying to have agency and thinking that they're the only one that can stop that individual person doing what they do. Okay, and so there's a quote here by Psych Central that I wanted to write to just give to you guys. It says, the environment necessary to create a trauma bond involves intensity, complexity, inconsistency, and a promise. Victims stay because they are holding on to that elusive promise or hope. And what's that promise or hope? I'm going to change. I'll never do it again. I'll never hit you again. Yeah, I won't cheat on you again. Okay, I won't steal the money from your purse again. Okay, I won't steal the money from your bank account again. Okay, I won't treat you badly again. I promise. I promise. I promise. I promise. I promise. Okay, and there's that hope that's coming in. Oh, they're gonna change. Oh, they're gonna. There is always manipulation involved. Wati, listen. Victims are prey to the manipulation because they are willing to tolerate anything for the payoff. Yeah? So the whole point is that, and this is where it becomes an addiction. And this is why cults are so dangerous, because the trauma bonding becomes addictive. What's the addiction here? When you get given, for instance, just imagine this feeling. You know, when you're going through a tough period in your life, and suddenly the sun comes through the clouds and you're now in a good patch. How does it feel? That initial rush. How does it feel when you're no longer under duress at that point? That immediate feeling that you feel is exactly what the person who's codependent in a trauma bonding session feels. So when they've become addicted to that high. And what happens is when the enabler gives them even a ray or hope, or a glimmer of hope that they're going to change, that's the feeling that they get. I want you to imagine that. That's the feeling that they're getting, right? That's the feeling that they're feeling at that particular time and point. So they're waiting for that payoff, that feeling of we've got past the clouds. But guess what's going to happen? They're going to revert again, and they're going to do it again and again and again. And then you try to leave, and they're going to bring you back into that cycle again. Okay, so I'm going to say again, victims are prey to the manipulation because they are willing to tolerate anything for the payoff, which is that the elusive promise or ever-present hope for fulfillment or some deeply personal need within the victim. And so this works more time with a codependent person, because that codependent person is living off the fact that they cannot be happy without fixing something. They cannot be happy without being needed. Problematic, yeah? This is why we have to be interdependent, not codependent, which is better than being independent. Yeah. Okay. So here's some of the signs of trauma bonding. You feel stuck and you feel powerless. You are aware of abuse, but you feel you can change them. Abuse happens, but you think you can see the good in them, or you focus on the good in them. You are told by friends and family that this person isn't good for you, but you continue to stay. You ignore their advice. You see consistent broken promises that you keep believing in, and their performance never matches the promise. The consistent use of promises all the time, right? That's another issue. When you try to leave, or when you do leave, you feel like you've lost your life. You feel like you've died. You feel like listen, I can't live. You understand? You're doing Ken Lee. Can't live without you. You understand? Oh, that's a little bit of a joke, man. It's Whitney Houston. Can't live without you. Do you know what I'm saying? You're doing all of that. Why? Because you've been induced into that toxic environment, and it's saturated into your mindset. Okay, that's a sign of trauma bonding. Okay, and I want to even go back onto codependent to get you to understand, because once we understand that person, maybe if you're watching this, you can understand yourself too, if you've gone through this or you're experiencing this. So the codependent person, okay, sacrifices themselves because they have a need to be needed. Okay, they go above and beyond because nothing else pleases them unless they're making huge strides for the other person. Okay. They are self-sacrificing. They are scared to be separate from the other person for too long. They will do anything within their power to help the enabler, the narcissist, the abuser. They will give up time, energy to fulfill the needs of the enabler. They will have in fact, let me comment to that. They have low self-esteem, and they are constantly in anxiety as to try and make that person happy. And I think this is what I saw. I saw this live, and like I said, now I see. I'm like, wow. This person was consistently anxious being around that person because they never knew what was going to happen. And they never wanted to make the person unhappy. So they were always on edge as to what should they say, what shouldn't they say? What should they do, what they shouldn't do? Okay? They knew the relationship was bad, but they just didn't want to leave. And so this low self-esteem also contributed to the fact that they didn't think they could do any better. I'm telling you, and so when you see this live, this is painful to watch. So if you are someone who's experiencing this, the ways to be able to separate yourself, we'll discuss that a little bit in a second as well. But I want to talk about why people become codependent in the first place so we can understand some things. Here's some reasons as why people become codependent. Oftentimes, this starts from a childhood, okay, of growing up in an environment where you weren't physically cared for, weren't emotionally cared for, weren't wanted, weren't loved, and it was dysfunctional of the highest order. Okay, and I'm going to give you some examples of dysfunctionality that can happen that can cause you to go into codependency. Okay, very harsh critique received from parenting or those who your caregivers at the time, emotional and physical neglect, chaotic and unpredictable environments, unsupportive environments where you're not supported in your dreams, your goals consistently. In fact, they're trashed and tarnished. You're in a scary and unsafe environment. Okay, you're in a manipulative environment where you're always constantly being, gaslighted or, being guilt tripped into doing something, what I'm saying? Like, don't things there, you're constantly being shamed and embarrassed in that environment. That you got a code of honor that you don't ask for help outside of the family. Even though the family's got problems, you refuse to you can't ask for help outside of the family. It's only the family. It's a family that understands you, etc., etc. Cult like. Very secretive families where things are happening that are covered up all the time. Judgmental, inattentive environments. And very unrealistic expectations for children, environments where they've put mad expectation of the kid, so much pressure, and there is literally no way you're going to be able to complete this, right? And so these are some of the environments that kids are growing up in that they're struggling to be able to meet the demands of that environment, because a child shouldn't be in this environment. An adult shouldn't be in that environment, but a child at that time is still too young to be able to understand the full works of what's going on, and they're being indoctrinated by the environment that they've been and what the experiences they've been taught. Okay, and so some of the things here, breaking free. There's some just what's one or two things here. So I'm gonna read from Psych Central again. I didn't want to read my. I want to just quote. It says here, professional help in the form of psychotherapy and life coaching is always highly recommended. Not only is he or she a trusted, safe person to talk to, but a professional can also help the individual develop effective strategies such as separation, which means separating from the narcissist abuser is key. This means physical and emotional separation, although the physical side of the separation is much easier. And I'm telling you this now. I had a friend that was involved with someone. I said to them, listen, just stay away. Like, that was my advice. Just stay away. And do you know what I mean? Because if you engage and you contact them and you message, look, the narcissist wants you to contact them. The abuser wants you to contact them, because as soon as you do, they're going to treat it like the original phase of your relationship, the beginning, where they courted you. And the same feelings that you had when you first met them, they're going to induce it into you again. Make you feel happy, loved, cared for, attentive, and all this kind of stuff, right? And then they throw you back into the cycle again, and then you're stuck. Okay, you must also acknowledge one's own choice, exploring the relationship through a coaching or therapy to see the gaslighting, the emotional abuse, criticism, control, the addictive aspects of the relationship is hard work, but it also provides opportunity for the codependent to recognize, acknowledge, and affirm his or her own positive choices to get away and avoid being held as an emotional prisoner in the relationship. And the third part is developing a support network, which I think is the most important thing. The Bible talks about how good counsel, it's good for us to have good counsel. And the fact that, listen, those who walk with the wise shall be wise. So developing a support network, just as the codependent is working to get away and become emotionally free from the trauma bonding and abuse, the narcissist is working to bring the codependent back under their control. It's important to the codependent person to develop a network of professional friends and trusted family members. Guys, I'll leave it there. And I hope that you guys have taken something from this trauma bonding. Yeah, it's literally a relationship that's built with an abuser who is willing to take advantage and throw you into emotional cycles that are destructive in their nature. So guys, make sure you like, share, subscribe. You click on that bell button as well for notification of the uploads. And don't forget as well that we are here to educate, to share, and to also build you up. Appreciate you guys. Stay locked, stay loaded. More love.